All right, we're back and super excited that David McClure is joining us in studio. He has been added to Taylor Jenkins' staff and is coming from a stint in Indiana. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so first things first, you grow up in Connecticut, play basketball. You are a big recruit there. It's interesting when I go back and look at, like, you know, of course, they tell me you're coming in. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go look all this up. Boy, you went through hell with these knees, huh?
Man, it's yeah.
Because you were a top 20 recruit in the country.
Yep.
You signed with Duke, and then even when I'm going through the Duke stuff, it's like he lost this season to a knee injury. Lost this season to a knee injury. It was both knees, right?
Both knees, yeah. When it was all said and done, six total.
6 surgeries?
Yeah, 4 on the left and 2 on the right.
I mean, it speaks to how good you must have been because you still ended up playing professionally, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, if you got 6 surgeries and you still made money playing basketball, you must have been unbelievable.
There were some things I couldn't do, but I guess the rest was still good enough. You know, I think the biggest thing was I always joked and said it was no break. So if I beat my first defender, if I couldn't get to the rim, watch out. I'm fanning off. I might get 3 or 4 charges in game, but you know, the first step and the jumping ability never left.
How did you manage to not be resentful about it all, right? Because you have this, I'm sure when you're in high school, you're playing amongst all of these great players. When you're a top 20 recruit, even at that time, when you're a top 20 recruit, you know the landscape. I'm sure you're thinking, I'm going to be an NBA basketball player. And to feel like it's kind of taken away from you because of injuries, I can only imagine that could lead to being rather upset. But how did you not turn resentful towards basketball?
I think I did get a bit resentful at a time. You know, I think the whole real 13 months that I was out the first time, I went through a number of phases. You know, it was the pissed off phase that it had to happen, and then, you know, during the 3 months where I couldn't even get on an exercise bike, I think that's when the resent came in, and I try to turn that into fuel. I was never really an angry basketball player when I played. I was more of a stoic player, and I don't think my demeanor changed, but I knew I was a lot more of a pissed off player when I got out there. You know, right. I was looking at guys who, you know, I knew I needed to have that edge at this point when I couldn't just rely on my God-given anymore. I needed to have some kind of a chip on my shoulder, and, you know, if you're going to hit me in the mouth, it doesn't matter. If I'm going to get up, I'm going to come back at you. And
right.
Never really a trash talker, but I wanted to make sure that they knew I wasn't the guy that disappeared on the court. Every game I played, I was going to have people know I was out there. You know, however I made my impact on the game one way or the other, they weren't going to forget I was on the court.
Were they freak accidents, or did you have some type of issue that then they found, right, that you just had bad knees?
Yeah, it was kind of a degenerative
It was?
thing. Yeah, it was. I've never had that fall to the ground, grabbing my knee, screaming in pain injury.
Really?
It was, you know, something feels a little funny, and they check it out. Oh, you have a little flap of cartilage.
Yep. That
falls out, and then they need to re-implant it, and that's when it the one that was longer and more detailed than the rest. They had to implant cartilage, implant bone, wait for that to refuse, and then after that, it was play, get back to full speed. All right, maybe I'm back to being who I was, and then a new piece of cartilage would fall out.
Ugh.
And then it was that constant battle where go in, scope it, take it out, keep it lubricated through the year, hope that no piece comes out, again, get back to close to full speed, and then I'm putting that force through the ground again, and another piece falls out. So it was just a constant 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And, you know, I knew that the NBA was probably not going to be in my future, but I got overseas and realized, you know, at this level I can do it for, you know, as long as I really wanted to. When I finished my last 2 knee surgeries, I finished my last year, went in and did a bilateral scope on both at the same time, hobbled out on both, you know, no crutches, walked out, fully intended on going back to playing. And then, you know, when I was sitting there, the doctor asked me, he said, do you have extreme pain or swelling? And I said, I have pain and swelling, but I've had that for 4 or 5 years. He said, well, it's not going to get worse because your knees are symmetrically bald at this point. You got nothing left to lose, so you can play as long as you want or transition. And
oh, wow.
You know, I reached out to, you know, a couple of the connections I had made with my time with the Austin Spurs in the G League, and it just kind of timing worked out where I was able to kind of walk in and get an interview for their video room and player development staff, and you know, it was a blessing in disguise. The rest has been history.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So you end up, do you know when you are, because you played in Lithuania, you obviously had the G League stint. At that point, are you thinking I want to be a coach? Is that what the career is going to be at that moment?
I think after playing for Coach K and then Quinn Snyder and Taylor in the G League, I had two coaches and the entire coaching staff at Duke as well that were just so invested in getting the most out of you and the most out of the team. And it almost seemed at times like they were, putting sleepless nights in because they were trying to really make sure that they had the best plan forward for our team to succeed. And I had some great coaches in Europe, and then I had some coaches that were not always the most prepared. And, we'd be going into games with some seemingly of the most important things that our team needed to be ready for that we weren't.
Right.
So whether it be the other captains on the team, the other Americans on the team, we might just go back and sit in our rooms the night before the game. What do we got to do? And we would kind of sit around and kind of have almost like a
you're forced into coaching.
Forced into coaching, almost like a mini podcast between ourselves. Where we're sitting there like, all right, well, we didn't talk about this. What do we need to do? If they deny us here, what are we going to do? In the pick and roll situation, if they go over, what are we going to do? And we realized if you got some 3 or 4 good minds that you trust, that you are comfortable with, sitting and trying to decipher and put together a game plan or the best decisions in terms of basketball, there's nothing much better that you can do than that. I mean, it's not going to be playing, but when you can still be a part of figuring out how to make a unit, a team gel and come together and be the best that they can be, there's so much, it's so rewarding, and there's such a excitement behind that.
You get involved on the player development side while you're there, and they are well known for player development. I mean, when people are familiar with a name like Chip England, know how good they are at developing players. And it's also, you'll be watching him and you'll go, who the hell is Jonathan Simmons? Or whoever, these guys that you may not even be aware of prior to. And you worked with Simmons, you worked with Danny Green, you worked with Patty Mills, all this kind of stuff. There's clearly a structure to how they develop players. And there's always this age-old question, do they just nail it in the draft in terms of the talent that they draft, or are they just amazing at maximizing that talent? That if I gave a draft pick from a couple of years ago, that may be out of the league now, that the Grizzlies took a couple of years ago, and I would have put him there. Like, is his whole road different? Does he maximize himself because of the situation? Is it like putting a child in an amazing school versus a bad school, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
Okay.
I do think that they've had some, hit some lottery and a couple of their picks in the draft just out of the park. And at the same time, I think that that's not only to do with talent. That's a lot of character of the guy. I know when some of the coaches would sit there and meet with him, or Chip would sit there and meet with him, they would have a lot of honest discussion and dialogue with these players that, you've got a lot of work to do. Can you buy into this? Are you going to be willing to change or to evolve into who we are? And it's tough because a lot of the players are kind of coached through this whole process as to give the right answers.
Right.
But I think they do a great job of, finding the best talent with the best character guy to really be moldable. Right. And I think the second half of it is they have, through the past and still now, they've done a great job of, monitoring minutes of players. Or if they've had I think when I was last there, I'd say like 32 was the middle age. I think, you had Tim creeping on 40, Manu up around 37, Tony was 33 or 34, Boris was 34, David West was 36 or 37, Andre Miller. So these guys were you didn't really have to contrive days off for them. They legitimately, after 3 games and 4 nights of playing 30-plus minutes, would need a night.
Yep.
Or need a couple of nights. And then you would get to implant one of these young guys into the rotation, not, on a whim for foul trouble, but, hey, for the next 2 games, you're going to be getting 20 minutes a game. And, if it's a smaller injury or, somebody goes down with a pulled hamstring, they have faith. They just kind of have, well, it's what we got. And he's going to, rather than saying, like, what are we going to do, or extending somebody else's minutes, they have faith that the best way for this player to learn is under fire. So...
Well, and with that being said, it's funny, Tony Allen was in here yesterday, and he gave this story about when he was young, and he said they told him, go defend and don't turn it over. Like, if you want to stay in the game and you want to get to play, don't turn the ball over and guard your man, right? Don't take some stupid shot, right? in terms of that development, and you see guys that are in so many times, like I've mentioned, the Jonathan Simmons, or we're at one night, Davis Bertans will knock down 5 threes against us, and we'll be like, what the hell? Who was the guy last year that Chandler stepped on?
By the way, I still have never seen Davis Bertans miss a shot. I don't think it's happened.
Oh, it was a Bryn Forbes.
Yeah, Bryn Forbes.
And it's like, what is going on? They're able to plug them in and be like, they can just be part of the system, even if they are young players, even if there's guys you've never heard of. How do you pull that off when you are molding a young player that getting to the point that you're willing to just put him in there and it feels like nothing really changes?
I mean, I think you use the word system, and I think that helps. I think, from with their organization, from whether it be the Spurs or the Austin Spurs, their system is the same. So they go down to the G League, they're working on that system. They're working on different techniques and skill sets that are going to fit in that system. They also will seek players for that system. I think they have full hope and belief that LaMarcus, or when I was there, Tim or Tony, or like those guys are going to be there. The guys that, they might have Tim and Tony one day, maybe not Manu. But when you can kind of hang your hat on guys who are so ingrained in the system and, the focal points of the system, you're really just using the other guys to fill in the gaps.
Yep.
And that's what they've been trained for. You're not asking them to do too much. You're not asking them to do something that isn't their strength yet. Now, when Kawhi first got there, it was stand in the corner, shoot a catch and shoot 3 and play defense. And then each year they said, all right, well, this year you can do that and X, and then that, and now X and Y. And then 4 or 5 years in, he's this product that everyone kind of forgets his trajectory when he first got there and remembers what, sees the end product. But, Kawhi was one of those guys. George Hill was one of those guys. Gary Neal was one of those guys. But again, you have Tony, Tony at the 1, Manu at the 3, Tim at the 5, and Boris Diaw or Matt Bonner at the 4, and you throw in George Hill at the 2, or Gary Neal at the 2, who at the point in time nobody knows anybody. They're being asked to do exactly what their strength is.
Yeah.
So I think, and again, when you're out there, if you could take driving lessons, if you don't get behind the wheel of a Ferrari, you're never going to learn how to drive a Ferrari.
Right.
So, they're constantly kind of trying to find ways to slowly but surely
get you in the mix
rather than like wait until, all right, this isn't your year. Next year you're going to get 20.
Right.
And then at the same time, the fans, maybe the national media might not know these guys, but the fans are comfortable with them too. Like, so-and-so's coming in. I remember he killed it the last time he came in for 2 weeks, and they're comfortable. It's not, dealing with constant backlash. How could you put this guy in, or how could you do that? And, through the years, I know right now they're not necessarily in the same position, but, my last year there, or my second to last year there, they were, 10 games out in front for first at one point. So you have a little bit more leeway to, give guys room to fail versus a team that's in a win now mentality and in that 6 or 7 spot in the league where you're like, oh, well, I don't know if I have that faith to put out, so-and-so in the game for 20 minutes. We need to win. We need to make the playoffs. And so I think it's a bit of both. And now that they've established that, I don't think you're going to see that slow down. I think that's what a lot of teams, and I know here that's what we're going to try to do as well, kind of give a lot of people opportunities, let them get out there and see if we can make our figure everything out based off seeing them in the game, not just in a practice or a drill.
So when you then leave San Antonio, they want a player development guy because this has become very in vogue at the time at Indiana. They have done a tremendous job of developing players over time. They routinely were not getting top 10 draft picks, and yet whether it was even going back to Roy Hibbert and Lance Stevenson, I mean, they had guys that like played in an 8-man rotation on really good teams, and clearly the greatest of hits was Paul George, who I know you worked with there. Last year, it feels like it kind of leads up to a moment like last year where everybody, including myself, thought it was a death knell to lose Vic. And there you are with a week and a half left in the season, and you still got home court advantage, right? With a week and a half. How did that happen with Indiana?
I mean, honestly, like, I cannot give enough credit to Nate and how he's just kind of captained that ship. The almost 180 that we took in terms of style of play between when Vic went down to after was absolutely crazy. Not only that we were able to do it, but sell the team on it, use the strengths of our team, and do it on the fly without seeming missing a beat. we were trying to play as fast as we could, get up and down, advance the ball to Vic, let him push it, try to put pressure on the defense getting downhill. And, it was almost kind of similar to the flip that, Coach K had to do from when I played at Duke to when he had a guy like Kyrie. We had Greg Paulus and Sean Dockery at point guard, and it was more setup guys. And, he kind of felt he needed to manage the whole game. And that's where Nate went to when Vic went out. We're going to dump it in. We're going to play out of the post, kind of a little bit old school. We would still try to get more threes, but, we really wanted to, he had a saying, play early or play late. And if we didn't get a shot early, we wanted to really use the clock. And I know, being from Memphis, you are used to that here, but it was.
Oh, you don't even know.
But, that's what we had,
right.
And. It was like Coach K said, all of a sudden I'm coming back and watching Kyrie play, and suddenly all the guys who were in my position who weren't allowed to shoot are getting 6 or 7 shots a game. I'm like, you're allowed him to take that? He's like, Dave, when I need a bucket, Kyrie can get me a bucket. We didn't have a guy like that when you were here.
It's also the one and done guys.
Yeah.
That's their only chance to get the buckets, right? You better throw the ball to Marvin Bagley because you only got him for 30 games.
Right. My job was get JJ open. Go run around and set 30 screens and get JJ open, and maybe you'll get a tip-in attempt if he misses, but those didn't come very often.
When you see, so the way that McMillan's able to do that on the fly, you are busy working with players over the course of the last several years, whether it's the Spurs or the Pacers. So one of the things that I've come across, whether it is front office guys or whether it is coaches, or everybody always has their favorites. Everybody always has the guys that it feels like they've got more stock in than another guy that may be part of the organization. As someone who is there working every day with these guys, you then become invested.
Yep.
You want the best of them. And how hard is it to try to convince people not to give up on someone, right? That he is going to be a player or he can be able to do this, because once an organization decides, all right, he ain't going to do it. And it happens many times with very young players in the league. And instead of allowing them, seeing what they are 4 years down the road, you've given up before you've even gotten to that 4-year point.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, and it is a constant challenge. And I think every organization, every situation will be different, but it's one of those things where, and it goes back to the win now. If you're in one of those teams that is, fighting for playoff positions, you're not the best team, you're in that middle where you feel like potentially your job could be on the line if things don't go right. It's going to be very easy to put a player in that, is supposed to be a shooter who goes 0 for 4, or who's supposed to be, a playmaker but gets hit, is known for being a bit soft, gets hit and, ducks to get out of the way of an elbow versus diving for a loose ball, because you're sitting there and the coaches are saying more, well, I can't put this guy out there, he might cost us a game. And then you're trying to argue the other side and be like, well, if we aren't going to reach the ceiling that we can be unless he can become comfortable out there. And if we're just sitting here and saying, if we're sitting there, because especially when you're dealing with so many young kids coming in today, I was listening to a show once where they were talking about when you get to summer league, you forget, oh my God, these guys look like kids, and they are. This is a grown man's league, and it takes time to get used to it. But if the only thing that they're missing is the physicality, or to get used to the physicality, you gotta live with a couple mistakes. You gotta live with, the kid bailing out of a couple of charges or missing a physicality at the rim, so that you can teach him and, kind of coach him up on those things. Right. Now, if you constantly see it and eventually they're getting the opportunity, that's when I think you might want to think about pulling cutting the cord. But I think you're so hitting the nail on the head where the hard part is getting them to get that opportunity, unless it's just they are so good so early that it's a no-brainer.
Right.
So,
and hopefully we got one of those.
Yeah, hopefully so. That's what we're banking on.
Regarding Taylor Jenkins, it's clearly a better job for you, but you want to come and work alongside him, and you knew some of these guys. In fact, when I was out at the golf tournament, I ran into to Brad, former Hustle coach, who was aware of you because he said, I guess that had just been reported, and I said, do you know about him? And he said he played for Taylor in Austin. So an interesting point of view that you would have, because you have been a player for him and now are going to be coaching alongside him. But why did you want to come work alongside him? I
mean, I've known him again since 2010. Drafted 7th round of the G League draft and end up, fighting my way into the starting position.
That's not bad with no legs.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, man.
I mean,
I got the starting position because the 4-man wanted to walk up the court, and I will constantly applaud him for that. Thank you, because I think that was what got me on the court. But just coming into work every day that I was in the G League, I wanted to come to the gym. Our staff was unbelievable. Quinn was just this mad scientist who was was a player's coach. Taylor and Alex were absolutely just full of energy every day. They were just sunshine every single day. And at the time it was a G League. It was watered down in terms of the length of the season, but we're still having 3-4 games a week, and on the road, staying in Albuquerque hotel for 10 straight nights, and taking small vans. So you're not always in the best mood. You're not always have the best nutrition or getting the best rest. And when you're around people that are making you that excited and that willing and desiring to be with them every day, and then you follow his career path, following Bud to Atlanta and then to Milwaukee, you're like, man, that's somebody I'd go into battle with. And he gets his ship. If he comes asking, I'll be there with him in a second. He's even talking with him now, we've had more conversations in the past couple of weeks than I've had with coaches I've worked with in the past, just because I think we're both as excited to hit the ground running with this thing as anybody can be. And after so long, and we've been following each other, I think just the ability to work together again is exciting.
Have you been to Memphis before this?
In and out.
Outside of NBA, dart in, dart out.
8th grade in nationals.
You were?
Yeah.
You played in the nationals here?
8th grade nationals with the Connecticut Flame, yeah.
How'd you do? Do you remember?
I know we made it to I think Sweet 16, and then the New York Gauchos against the powerhouse from our area took it home.
Is that right?
Versus the Houston All-Stars, I believe, yeah.
How about that?
So the Memphis All-Stars. It was Andre Allen and
oh, no!
Jarrell Houston and all these guys.
Andre Allen, shout out.
Yeah.
How about that? That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So you were here for then, and then I'd assume you've been here for a couple of weeks. Have you done anything yet?
I flew in last week just trying to get settled and find a place to live, and I've been staying downtown at the Peabody for now, so you'll see me on a scooter trying to find a good place to eat.
So you've seen the ducks?
Seen the ducks, yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen the duck pond, but I've seen the ducks in the lobby and tried a few nice places to eat. So I've been enjoying the city so far.
Seen any of the players?
Yeah,
they've been around. Some of these guys have been working out and whatnot. Yeah. I know Jaron was out there in Vegas playing.
I haven't seen Jaron yet. Grayson came in today. It was great to see him. Have a little
another Duke guy.
Yeah, have
you
a
guys
little
can
experience
have a
with
powwow.
him. Exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to.
That's neat.
Brandon came in. Ja was in yesterday. He wasn't in today,
So
but just slowly getting a chance to get to know the guys. Yeah, and it's. Everybody seems to be on the same page with us, wanting to hit the ground running, coming in salivating, ready to go.
In terms of your role, when people see you out there, they're going to say, who's that guy in the suit, right? But before the games and in terms of player development, because that's your expertise, what did Taylor tell you, like, here's what I need you to do in conjunction with this staff we're putting together? I
think once we kind of get everybody in at the same time, we're going to have a coach's retreat. And I think once we do that, I know we're going to do much more of an all-hands-on-deck approach than in the past places I've worked, where it might be one coach working with one player or another coach working with another player for the entire year. They might have their coach that they rely on in terms of video and in terms of getting advice from. But when it comes to on-the-court work, we really want to just have these players kind of excited. Who am I working with today? So I'm probably, I don't know for sure, but I'm probably going to oversee that a little bit, get my hands wet a little bit as well. I still can get on the court and bang a little bit.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah. I was in Indiana. I was, probably with some of the guys that weren't playing. We'd play 4-on-4 about 3 to 4 days a week, trying to go up and down, keep them in shape.
He's got some shoes to fill, doesn't he, with, what's it, Stackhouse. Jerry Stackhouse, you go into after practice, he would be pouring. Yep. I really think he was a coach because he wanted to play basketball against the guys. I mean, he just got, thank God for him, he got the Vandy job.
Right,
He's going to be the head coach down there. But you would go in there and he would be like, he would be banging these guys, pouring with sweat. And he's still good.
Yeah, I've seen him.
Can you still get a bucket?
Oh, yeah. I can get a bucket. I'm more of a facilitator, but I still got the defensive prowess. I can go out there. That was what I did. Defense was definitely my game. So I can go out there and I'll talk a little trash and try to rile them up a little bit, and that's good. Sometimes they need that, and I kind of know if I get the best of them, I'm going to be in for it for a few weeks. But because it's definitely not it shouldn't happen. It's more like they were having a bad day. I was feeling good.
Well, you're still of age. Like, you're still, right? What are you, 32?
Yeah, 32 with 50-year-old knees. 33, but yeah.
Should I make the "we know about 50-year-old knees around here" joke or not? Too soon? Too soon?
Way too soon.
All right. We won't wait. David, I'm glad you're in town, man.
I am too. I'm definitely glad to be here and looking forward to getting to know and sit down
look,
with you guys.
You got to develop them all. They're all young.
that was the excitement.
Jay Crowder's gonna be sitting over there like, wait, working with me. You got a bunch of young guys on this team, but you do have in between Morant, Jaren, this Clark kid they drafted. I mean, God, the raw stuff's there.
Oh, it's definitely there. You know, Kyle's still young.
Yes.
Hopefully, I'm going to go out and see him in about a week to see how he's doing in L.A. And working with him in San Antonio and actually having a bit of a relationship with him from the past. His dad was one of my original AAU coaches, so
wow.
I know how much if we can get him healthy, how effective he can be, and just having a four who can create and facilitate and. I think we have a lot of young pieces in place that it's going to be an exciting, we get through these couple of years, you're going to start seeing what our vision kind of come to fruition.
Awesome. He is David McClure. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for